Welcome back, everybody, to the Me and Jesse podcast. I am Mark Pavlich, away in the Grove, the big sexy, and our special guest today, everybody. Arguably, probably the most liked human being in MMA, in my opinion. Six-time world kickboxing champion, PFL president, the one and only Ray Sugar Sefo.
You're awesome. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Me and Jesse podcast. It's a really big honor to see you. What we've watched happen in PFL recently is where Mark and I have talked so much about where we feel the sport should go. You guys are doing it. Why don't you quickly take us through the transition recently with like PFL and Bellator and just how that came about and what came from it?
Yeah, I mean, we were in talks with the Bellator team for, I want to say for like 8 months to a year.
Wow.
Before anything was finalized, and obviously that when it came to the final days, that got done, and the benefits of it all is that we have all these amazing fighters that gets added to the scene and gets added to the PFL roster and whatnot. And so now, we're still working through those,
of course,
times, and we're working, making sure that everybody gets to fight and whatnot. And sometimes it's tougher than you expect it, but like I've told managers, give us to mid 25, everything should be on, on up and up, because by then we would have everything in place and moving forward smoothly.
Do you think your success with PFL, not just with PFL, but when you had the World Series of Fighting too as well, do you think your martial arts background has given you that kind of like extra respect from people, because you're still in the gym, you're still at Extreme Couture,
right?
You're still in the gym, and I think that's the thing that fighters can understand. You don't even have to try to get along with fighters, because you are one. So you see these promoters in the world that try to do that all the time, trying to be a fighter, trying to be the man, and it's like, you don't have to do that. Like, you're literally in the gym still. Like, you still hold mitts for like a student. You know what I'm saying? And you're the
right.
PFL president. And I think that's what people don't understand about you, which makes you extremely different from every other promoter in the entire world.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. The martial arts background has helped a lot in understanding the fighters, but also understanding the business side of it all. But like I said from our very first press conference with WSOF, and I still say the same thing, you pay respects to those who came before you. And that's why I have nothing but love and respect for the UFC and Dana and what they've done, because otherwise we probably wouldn't have the opportunity to do what we do.
Correct.
And so now, like I've said, at times we're going to run into, certain difficulties, but that's something that every business runs into.
That's right. That's
everything in life we run into, even in our personal lives. And so it's up to us to kind of figure that out and continue to move forward. And so, but yeah, I'm still in the gym. My last guy that just fought was Alexander Volkov.
Yeah.
That was, the decision was ridiculous, but it is what it was.
Yeah,
and
it was.
To your point, yeah. I'm in the gym. I'm sparring 3 days a week. I'm still training. I'm still coaching.
Crazy.
And I love it, but it's that balance of the PFL, work and the being in the gym. It kind of balances everything out.
Correct. Many years ago, I owned this little organization in Canada called the MFC. And I had it for 16 years. And the crazy part was, when I owned that many years ago, people used to always talk about you all the time, like, but never bad. Like, there's nobody in this industry, nobody, including myself, that you can hear always good about. And Ray, I'm not, listen, and everybody knows watching this podcast, I don't grease no one's nuts for no reason. If it's warranted, it's warranted, and it's warranted because it's a fact. Listen, you coming from a kid from New Zealand, through the kickboxing world, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, World Series of Fighting, and then you do the PFL, and then you make the deal to do Bellator. And most people didn't realize that most people thought Bellator would buy PFL. So when you bought
Right.
Bellator,
Yeah.
that's when everybody was like, "Oh shit, did they just buy Bellator?" And then that changed you on the kind of, you can say Dana's going to like you, of course. He can't say nothing bad about you, but there is going to be a time. You understand? The more you grow, the more he dislikes. He's I know Dana for 30 years. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I know him well, and I know how he is. Like, yeah, Ray's cool now, but the bigger you get and the more noise you take and the more you take away from his market share when it comes to television, right? Television, ticket sales, whatever the case may be, he will find a reason, Ray, to pick the fight with you.
Right. Listen, I have a good relationship with Dana. I mean, Dana's Dana. We all know,
Yeah.
he's going to speak his mind.
Mhm.
Love him, hate him, Dana's going to speak his mind. And I have, guys that I coach that also fights the UFC.
Right.
And here's the way I look at it. When, the question was asked of me back then when we first started WSOF, it was like, also, you're going to be a competition to the UFC. I'm like, that's the most asinine question.
Correct.
Because
Correct.
the UFC was 25 years old and we hadn't done a show
Right.
yet.
Correct.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, listen, do I want to be as good as the UFC? Yeah, 100%.
Of course.
Is it going to take time? It's like, who knows? But, we have to learn from our mistakes and whatever other mistakes that we can see that we don't have to go down that path. But I've always said, listen, if there's enough room for everybody, and as long as the competition is good for the fighters,
Yeah, I agree.
then we're all succeeding. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I also find too, like with the fighter first mentality that so many people have
Right.
talked about, like, how's the environment with the PFL versus the UFC for the fighters? Like, what, as a fighter, if I see on this one side I get treated really, really well and I get to fight a lot, as much as I need to, and on this other side I don't, and maybe I don't make as much, and I know how much everyone else is making, in my mind I lean towards this one that treats me a little better. It's a big, I know it's hard to say, but it's a big, obviously we've been talking about it for a couple years now with how well
Right.
we're getting, we see how much boxers get paid.
Right. Yeah. Again, our job is to continue to grow and continue to provide opportunities for fighters. And as long as they're happy, then we're going to be happy.
Yeah,
Because,
yeah.
like I've said to
Exactly.
my team many a times, that, and I hate to put it in this sense, but the number one product is the fighter. And without fighters, there's no league, and there's no promotion, there's no PFL, there's no UFC, blah 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 blah. But again, like I said, as long as we'll continue to provide that opportunity, fighters are going to continue to get signed with whoever they're comfortable with.
What do you think though? Ray, that I keep noticing in the sport right now is you're watching it, like we're watching it in firsthand. When we see John Jones, like he's not going to fight as much now, and then there's no Connor no more, and there's no, Max fights a little bit, and then there's no Diaz brothers anymore, and then you look at PFL and you look at this guy. It looks like we don't have those. There's great fighters. There's all great fighters, but we're not getting that guy that, I'm not even talking about trash talking. I'm talking about if Mark Pavlich is fighting Ray Sefo, I know how to sell the fight against you like better and better than anybody.
Right.
But what I'm noticing is that fighters still can't do that correctly. And they think, well, Ray, I don't want to talk trash, but you don't have to talk trash. I don't have to talk trash about Ray Sefo. I just think it's crazy that Ray Sefo would sign a contract to fight me, right? And then I would start on that shtick. I don't know why fighters don't understand. Like, this is not just your job to sell PFL. It's the fighter's job to sell PFL. And when they start to realize that once and for all, that's how this thing could grow exponentially. When every fighter shares a PFL post on Twitter, Instagram, whatever the case may be, everybody share it. Everybody send it out to everybody. Everybody talk. Listen, you got this fight coming up. Listen, you pick a character you want to become and be that guy. But be that guy and make that fight for someone to watch. I don't even care if you're on the prelims. You want to get on the main card, it's that easy. And it's like, listen, guys, it's not brain science anymore. And I'm not saying you have to act like Connor. Please don't act like Colby Covington. But you know what I'm saying, Ray? Like there's got to be this is not your era. Your era was different. When you were in a kickboxing fight, it was like, oh, Ray Sefo's fighting. Oh shit. You didn't have to say a word because people knew, like, oh, this is just going to be a mess. Like this is going to be crazy. But in this day and age, it seems like that could stand out over anything else if fighters could get that through their heads to start pushing the envelope, whether you're on the prelims or on the main card, to start really pushing their own single fights each time they fight.
No, you're absolutely right. My time and today is completely different. Like you said, back then we get caught up and we go, okay, cool, you're fighting Mark Hearn. Perfect. Oh, you're fighting Peter Ertz, or you're fighting this or who, you're fighting Jerome like that. It's like
it's crazy.
You don't have to say anything at all, much really. And then, but nowadays, to your point, it's about marketing yourself. It's about being out there and our team. We obviously try and tell the guys like just be yourselves. But it is the fight game, and a lot of people don't really like to say much, and it is what it is. And,
vanilla doesn't sell no more, though. Right. That's the problem. Vanilla doesn't work. It's like people want tiger tail, chocolate. They want the good flavors.
Right.
And it drives me nuts because I watch it and I'm like, guys, you can easily. We've had AJ McKee on our show, and I'm like, AJ, I love the way you fight, but you can't sell a stick of gum to a guy that's dying. You can't. And you have to figure that out. You want to make more money. You want all these great things. And just doing your fighting doesn't work anymore. It doesn't. Like, very few guys are getting away with that today. Very few.
Well, I hope they hear this and they hear you. And might take something away from that, because you're absolutely right. It is different times, and marketing yourself. And then again, when you look at social media today, I mean, there's so much more available for these fighters to market themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
So do you guys offer any sort of like assistance in that? Like, I'm always wondering like what a league or an organization can do for these guys. Like, get someone, hey, we got a guy that actually will follow you around for a day and take pictures of you or something.
And that's, our PR team talks to these guys all the time. Tiny and some of the team reach out and say, hey, listen, this is this, and what do you think of that? And you know what I mean? So they give them certain, not a dialogue, but ideas, and some, go with it and some don't.
It's crazy, right? When I owned the MFC, I was interviewed probably 150 times before every show, and my fighters were not interviewed at all. And I used to yell at them all the time, and I'm like, guys, I don't want to do one interview. I don't want to do one. That's the defeat of what I'm doing. I want to promote the show, talk to corporate sponsors, TV deals. That's what I want to do. I don't want to sit and do 150 interviews before shows. But because what can happen is the second you ask me a question about MMA, I know how to pick a fight with I could pick a fight with myself in an interview. So what would happen? So everybody would tune in. Ariel Helwani would call. All these people call. Mark, get on the show. We want you on the show, because literally everybody thought I was this lunatic that could just, like, I would fight with the chair next to me, But people thought that was funny. And literally, that's what I'm not saying you have to be that guy, but literally, guys, please, like, step up. Just sell your individual. If you're a female fighter on the prelims, that should bother you. If you're a male fighter on the prelims, that should bother you. I don't care what level you're at. And guys, you have to sell this brand, because listen, you're the only brand in the world right now, separate from the UFC, that I would even think to watch. You know what I'm saying? Like, I no disrespect to the smaller shows and whatever the case may be out there, but literally, like, what you're doing is it is interesting. It is captivating. It is, we do want to watch it. So literally, guys, you have to buy into this, but as a collective group, regardless if you're fighting each other.
No, but Mark, I mean, that's the thing. You're the type of guy that's out there. You come across, you represent yourself well, and so a lot of these fighters have to try and find that niche about them that can. I mean, listen, if you look at Habib barely could speak English when he came on the scene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and then, he started saying, one-liners here and there, and it stuck. Like
It was, yeah,
he's
100%.
one of the most famous fighters in the world today.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah, I agree with you, Ray. But this is a pandemic. This is a
Right.
real pandemic in our sport.
Right.
And UFC is going to find out, and no disrespect to them either, but they're going to find out firsthand as well when you have no Connors, no, all these other guys, and they start to see these pay-per-view numbers just go all the way down because it's happening because of those certain individuals that you threw all that money into, promoted them. But there's a lot of great fighters in the UFC, but you can't name anybody outside a certain amount of you can, but if most of them walk down my street right now, my neighbors wouldn't know who they are.
Right.
Which is unfortunate. Is unfortunate.
But you make a good point, and I hope all the fighters hear this and take that advice, because you're absolutely right. With so many tools that's available to them today. I wish these tools were available to us back in my time. But,
could you imagine? Yeah, could you imagine?
Exactly.
I couldn't even imagine seeing you talking, you and like Ernesto, who's talking back and forth to each other.
Right.
Like that would have been bananas, man.
But yeah, no, I totally agree. I think whoever, any fighter that hears this, hopefully they take that advice and start something small. I mean, you don't have to go out there and be absolutely crazy.
Yeah.
Just start off small.
The unfortunate part is your PR company isn't going to yell at a guy to do it.
Right,
They're going to suggest to the guy. And,
Right, exactly.
and unfortunately, with guys from in the fight world, suggesting doesn't work all the time. You know what I mean? As you know
that well.
As you know, right? It's like, guys, we suggest you do this. And the guy's like, well, I do enough training already. I train hard and I train all these things. But then you start to look at and you go, well, why did all these other guys make so much more money? Right? People used to say in my own organization, "Oh, Mark, you have favorites," And when we'd have the meeting, all the fighters around, I go, "You better believe they're my favorites because they sell this many tickets. They're always promoting themselves. They're my favorites, and until they're not, then you'll be my favorite if you do the same thing. Ask me which one of my kids I like the most. I'll tell you right now on this show. My son Dave, I like him here, and I love my daughter. I love her to death, but just a little bit underneath my son.
It's public.
Right.
My kids can get traumatized by that all they want, Ray, but it's the truth, right? And it's like sometimes the truth, it'll set me free, but it'll let them know too as well. When I ask my son to do something his whole entire life, yes, Dad, I'll go take care of that for you. My daughter, not so much. So this is how it works. And it's the same thing with the fighters. You're nice to everybody, Ray, but at the same time, if PFL wants to just go into Pluto, it needs everybody going the same direction. You know what I mean? And it's like with all the hard work you guys have done, with all the work you've done to put the organizations together. And I know guys are kind of like huffing and puffing out because they're not fighting enough, right? And they're like, and we've had them on our show, and when I said to them, I go, guys, you understand the magnitude of this merger?
Right.
Like it's huge. It's not small. Literally, to get everybody working, there has to be fights every 6 weeks. You know what I mean? Like maybe even less than that. And people don't understand. It's not just easy to go, hey, we're going to put on a show tomorrow. You know what I mean? So, hopefully they can all understand, like moving in the same direction that, this is what's needed.
No, I agree. And thank you for saying that. But you absolutely, better than most. And it's a working process, progress. And of course, it takes time. And then within time, we'll get it right.
Yeah, I think so too.
Let's go back 25 years. Do you think you'd be sitting in an office doing this work today? 25 years ago?
Absolutely not. I never ever thought that anything is possible. But then it's the same when I never in my wildest dream, if I go back to when I was 10 years old and tell my young self that I would be living in Las Vegas for 20 years and and working from Vegas. And so, I just thank God every day and for the blessings and you just continue to roll with it and do the best you can to not only make sure that the people that around you and the people that you work with all work well. but yeah, no, it's just, so grateful and so thankful, and I'm blessed.
Where does that come from, Ray, when you say that? Because I like, you said it a few times, and I like that a lot, right? And you say you're blessed, and you reference that, right? In a time where you're starting to hear this more now, because before you weren't hearing this, right?
Right.
Now you're saying I'm blessed, and you're blessed, and you're blessed. Where does that come from?
Well, I mean, for me, my parents obviously were Christians, and uh, as far as I can remember, maybe 4 years old, that we would go to church every Sunday. We would have Bible studies, I think Wednesday and Thursday.
Wow.
And so, that's how we were raised. And at a certain point, you, as an individual, you find that relationship with God yourself, because you, as a kid, you go along and you understand it's church and it's Christianity, and you thank God and whatnot, but you don't really understand it until, like, I didn't really fully understand it until I was probably late 20s, early 30s.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then that relationship became more personal. And when certain people ask, I'm like, listen, that you just got to find God within yourself,
Sure.
and nurture that relationship, because it's important.
Yeah.
And so, I teach my kids the same thing. They do a prayer before they go to bed. They do a prayer when they wake up to thank God that we have another day to live. Awesome. And then throughout the days, I mean, like even today, like I remember I would go to training, and the session would be freaking grueling, and I'll get in my car, put on some Luther Vandross or Julio Iglesias, and thank the good Lord that I was able to go through that session, and now I can just go home and rest.
Yeah.
Sure.
What happened in your life when big things happen? That's a bad day at training, but when when the things that go wrong,
right?
How did you respond in that? And is there a time that you remember that you really leaned on that relationship you have with God, like that really pulled you through?
Yeah. So at one point in my life, this is when I was still competing, and I was still signed to K1 and whatnot. And towards the end of K1, they filed bankruptcy, owing a lot of fighters millions and millions of dollars, and I was one of those guys. And literally, I had to start, and I had everything. I had 3 cars in the garage. I had all this and all that. I had a home, and I literally had to start selling things. And at the same time, my son was just born. And so, I just and I remember talking to some of my brothers from back home, and friends, and they were like, "Ray, please don't do anything silly." But I'm like, "Hey guys, listen. Here's the way I look at it. I was born a fighter. I'm always going to be a fighter. Yeah. But the way I look at it is, this is a test of my faith in God and a test of my faith in myself." And
interesting.
And so I just kind of just put one foot in front of the other and just keep moving forward. And then I was coaching even more so at the time that, I take a couple of fights here and there. And sorry about that. And then, back in 2012, I ended up starting, myself and my business partner at the time, starting WSOF.
And, that's right. Yeah.
And so then, again, it just started, and that was rough too. The first two years, it was,
of course,
like everybody thought I was,
gazillionaire. Yeah.
This and that, whatever.
Yeah.
But I literally was, I mean, there were times when I checked into the hotel, I had zero in my account. So I had to get one of the boys to come in and check, to put your card there. And this is the first time I've told, I'm actually have ever told this story. You know what I mean? And
that happens. So, this happens on this podcast lots. Like same with you when you get on this podcast. Most people don't realize, like they don't realize you're going to talk about God on this podcast. You understand that, right? But most people don't realize that Jesse, the good-looking bearded guy, used to be a pastor.
Right.
And I've been a person of faith my entire life.
Right. Right.
So even with all the craziness and everything, but I wouldn't be here without God. Like I know that for sure. I know
Amen
that
to
for
that.
I know that for sure. So, but it's interesting when on this podcast, how many people, have said certain things, and what you said today, this is what I was looking for, because people don't, they just see you now, Ray. They just
Right.
see you today. They saw Ray K1, Ray World Series, Ray PFL,
Right.
but they never saw Ray. Oh,
Behind the
can't.
scenes.
I can't pay.
behind the scenes.
I can't pay for the hotel. But
Yeah.
you know
Right.
what's funny about that, and it's crazy because you literally, people don't understand that. They just can't comprehend
Right.
that you actually would have the courage to admit that you actually went through something like that in your life.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
And that's it. Listen, we're all human, and we all,
Yeah.
we all feel pain. We all go through struggles. But just like, as fighters, you get knocked down 5 times, you get up 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
And
that's
so,
right.
and you
Exactly.
continue to move forward. And
Exactly.
and to your point, yeah, a lot of people don't understand that until they hear it and they go, really? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so,
How was
but-
that mentally? Like, we talk lots about mental health too. Like, how were you affected in that time?
for me, I thank God every day that I've always been blessed with a strong mindset. I've always had, and I get this from my parents. My mom and dad are very religious people, but they're also very strong people. And I've never, I don't, I can't think of a time where, and I've seen my parents struggle time and time again,
There you go.
but I've never seen them complain about anything.
Yeah.
My dad was just like, it was just putting one foot in front of the other and going to work, going to fix this thing here, going to do that, trying to go and help somebody else. So
Ray, can we say that on the show today, that's not the greatest I believe that's the greatest generation in the history of all time is
Yep.
my parents, your parents' generation.
Yep.
What you just said, people don't, our generation's okay. The
Right.
generation after us, they couldn't go through 1/10 of what your parents went through in life. You know what I mean?
That's for sure.
Could you imagine? And that's not putting down generations underneath us, because you're going to be great at other things. But
Right.
what I'm talking about, that struggle that your parents, like you said, I've heard that 100 times on the show, where that generation just didn't complain. They just
Right.
kept going forward.
Right.
And I mean, that's something that it's just truly incredible that every time on the show, I've heard people say that about their parents or their mentors in life, how they just didn't complain about it. They just kept going.
Yeah. And, I just had this deep conversation with my son yesterday. He's 15 and, he wants to have girlfriends and he wants to do this, he wants to do that. And so I just said, when I had this talk with him yesterday, I was like, you have no idea how tough it was for me, but also for your grandparents.
Yeah, that's right.
And I said, today in your world, and I get it, that we have to go with times. And I said,
Yes.
but in your world, you can just Google things and they'll tell you how to do it.
Yeah,
That's right.
exactly.
That's right. That's right.
Don't
Watch
need
a
to
video.
go to school.
Yeah,
No,
no, yeah.
No.
Google everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
You got it in the palm of your hand.
Yeah.
It's true. It's
With
true.
us, we had to find answers. We had to
Figure it
go
out.
out and
Yeah.
it was just
Get an
a
encyclopedia from the
different way of
library.
life. And that's probably where all that strength comes from. And that mindset is like, we don't have time to cry on somebody's shoulders or whatever.
Yeah.
It's all about just being a man and biting
That's right.
down and just putting one foot in front of the other and keep working until it gets done.
That's
So
funny.
talking to your
I was
kids now,
when you're talking to your kid like that, see, that generation can afford to have an opinion now, Ray. You know
Right.
why? You understand what I'm talking about.
Yep,
And
100%.
and my daughter, if she watches the show, she's gonna get mad at me because she's sitting in Vancouver, went to school, and I said to her, she has an opinion about everything, right?
she'll be mad
And
about
she
something
says,
else
"What's-
before
she-
this.
but of course. But she says, Dad, what's your opinion on this? I said, honey, I didn't have an opinion. She goes, what do you mean? I go, I was too busy working. Like, I work so much. What do you think about this? I don't care. Like, I have to go to work. I had to work. And I said that the generation after us, they can afford to have an opinion. Our generation could not.
Yeah, 100%. I mean,
Yeah.
I if I had an opinion, I'll give, I'll get a belt wrapped around my forehead.
That's right.
It's a little different.
And that was considered that wasn't considered child abuse, which most people don't understand. That was
Yeah.
considered altering
Tough love.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
tough love,
But
yeah.
but now they call it something else. But in my generation, I agree with you, right? That was just like keep your mouth shut. That's how it
Yep.
was. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It must be frustrating sometimes to watch, like, let's just say in fighters in general, sometimes when they're, you know, get a paycheck or something and go off the rails or something like that. How do you get an opportunity to sit down with some of them and actually like have like open discussion?
I do. Matter of fact, anybody, my phone number is available to all our fighters.
Wow.
And I tell them all the time. I said, listen, you can call me anytime you want for advice, how to
Fantastic.
do this, how to whatever. And I've had a few that's reached out. I mean, even in our gym at Extreme Couture, the same thing. When I get pulled aside and I'm like, listen, here's my number. You can call me anytime you want. I don't care if it's night, day, whatever it is. Because I think it's important because I never had that, and so
Of course.
now I have the opportunity to be able to do that for somebody else.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, that's a big thing. I mean, fighter first. Really, that's really what is bigger than actually
Right.
getting life help versus
Yeah,
like
that's
outside of your work,
yeah.
right? Like, fighter first. That's human first, really, when I look at it
Right,
like that.
right, exactly.
Yeah. Take us back to to you growing up, and you said you're born to be a fighter. What age were you when you decided you could beat people up?
I don't know if I decided. I think I just kind of did.
Yeah. It picks you.
Yeah. I mean, I can remember one time it was myself, some of my brothers, and we went to the park. I think I was maybe 7 at the time,
Wow.
and we ended up getting into this massive fight. And so every time there was something, somebody trying to bully somebody, I would step up and go, come on, listen, you don't need to do that. He doesn't want to be bullied, blah, blah. And then he'll turn to me, and then before you know it, I'll let him out, and then the fight's on. And yeah, I don't know, I kind of just enjoyed being there to help somebody else. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Did you get in trouble like in school for fighting in bunch? Like, was that a thing?
Say that again.
Did you get in trouble at school for fighting, or
I did. I almost got kicked out of 2 schools for fighting.
how did your parents respond to that? Because like one thing, it isn't like part of the religious side of it. It's like we shouldn't be fighting; it's bad.
Right.
How do they deal with that?
I mean, obviously, my parents. How do you put it? They were okay for me to stand up for others and for myself.
Correct.
Yeah.
But they also would say, "Hey, try not to get into fights."
Yeah.
Are they still alive right today? Are they still alive?
No, I lost my mom. I want to say 3 years ago now.
Okay.
And my dad he's about 89 now.
Wow.
And he's getting old.
Is he in New Zealand? Is he in New Zealand?
No, he lives in Australia now.
Okay.
They have been the last 20 years. They've lived in Australia.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So yeah, growing up, you're a fighter. You almost get kicked out of a couple schools, but you graduate then, and you decide to make a profession out of this. How did that happen?
Well, the crazy thing is, so my dad was a boxer. My cousins, uncles, everybody boxing in our family.
Okay, all right.
So at 5 years old, my dad gave me my first boxing gloves and taught me how to box. At the age of 7, my dad rented a Bruce Lee movie and a Jackie Chan movie.
Oh, you're done. You're done.
And I was done.
Yeah.
And I said to my dad, Dad, why do I need to just learn how to use my hands when I could do what they're doing?
Sure.
Yeah, use my legs.
And I was hooked. And so by the time I was 12, I worked a part-time job delivering milk. So the truck would drive down the street, and myself and one other guy would run and drop the full bottles of milk, and grab the money and the empty bottles of milk. And so, and that's how I paid for my Kung Fu lessons. So
Wow.
I started Wing Chun Kung Fu and did that for 60 years.
Wow.
But going back to the fighting part, every time I got into a street fight, now I'm not saying go for anybody out there, please don't go do street fights.
Yeah.
But every time I got into street fights, and again, Mark, to your point, different times.
Yeah,
Yeah,
time,
that's right.
different
That's
time.
right.
And
No one called the police. Like, I don't know,
right, exactly.
like you see now in this day and age, like it's hilarious. People call you like, they'll call you outside, you kick the shit out of them, then they sue you, right? Like,
right,
it's
exactly.
how the world
Different
works.
times.
It's so backwards now. You know what I mean? Or is it right? But you know what it forced you to do back in the day was shut your mouth. So
Right,
if you didn't want a problem with someone, you didn't open your mouth because you knew it was going to happen.
100%.
Now, in this day and age, very, very different. You could call someone outside, go outside, you end up kicking the shit out of them, and you're going to go to jail. This is how it works.
Right.
Yeah, crazy.
And
Crazy.
in my opinion, it's backwards.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, that's
we
why
gotta go
everybody
back
can
to
say
the-
what they want now. You remember when you're walking through the park and there was all those grown-up kids there, and I would say to them, "Yeah, you guys think you're tough," and they say, "Yeah." And yeah, Pavlich. And I said, yeah. And then I'd fight them. Right. Well, win or lose. But I didn't go home crying to my mom. And I didn't call the police. I wanted it. I wanted to see if they were tough, and that's how it was. But in this day and age, the whole world has changed because now you see kids, they talk any way they want. Right. My kids don't. But I'm saying other kids, they did. And when they came to our house, I had to adjust them and tell them, you don't speak like that at our house. Not even once. So if you understand, that's how it works. That's why we have boxing gloves everywhere. So you'll get us. See, in our day, you got it with the bare hand. In our house, at least we'll put a boxing glove on before you get it.
I love it, Mark. I mean, no, it's the same in my household. My kids, I raised them old school. Because they need to have thick skin. They need to understand that you can't just mouth out to anybody.
Ray, what's wrong with this, Ray? What's wrong with this dying art? When someone gives you something and you say, "Hey, thanks a lot, Ray. I really appreciate it." Now my kids talk like that, right? And what I'm trying to say is, my son doesn't walk in front of his mother when she's going through the door of the restaurant. He opens the door for his mother, and he has a cowlick on the back of his head from me smacking him in the back of the head all those times. Because I told him 100 times, you don't ever walk in front of your mother, not for one time. And now he's 36 years old. Now he can kick my ass. But what I'm saying is he learned that way of life. But you can see when I talk to him about it, he's like, "You were right, Dad, about that," because now he has his first child, and he will teach his child never to walk in front of his mother and grandmother, and that's the way it needs to go,
And that's exactly right. I mean, that's how you lay the foundation. It's from when they're young, so when they grow up, they understand how that is, and they appreciate it because they're getting taught the right way, and how to respect people and how to say thank you and your pleases and whatnot.
Yeah, it's unheard of now. It's a very rare commodity moving forward. And Jesse has 5 boys, and I know that he has taught them that way of life. But it's really, like I said, it's a slippery slope, man. It's really different. It's very different now. When I hear kids, when I'm out, and I don't say nothing to them, but I'm like, wow, like I'm at a restaurant or something, and I hear the way kids talk to their mother, and it's just like, oof, my wife's like, Mark, don't, and I'm like, I won't, but it's just like, it's not right. It's just not right.
What do any of your kids looking to get into the game too?
No, I actually, to be quite honest, I never want my kids to be fighters.
I agree.
And I'm pretty sure every fighter has, understand when I say it's a tough way of earning a living.
Yes.
The ups and the downs are the worst, and so I know what I'm like, and I know how mentally strong I am, but I don't know that with my kids. And any father, I just feel like I don't want to risk that. You know what I mean? And so I'm
glad you answered it right, Ray, because we've had other people on this show where they've lied through their teeth for that answer. And they say, oh yeah, I want my kid. Yeah. And it's like, you know, it's just not true. Like my son was a great fighter. He trained with all the UFC guys.
Right.
He did here, and he did great against all of them. And then one day I came home and I said to my wife, you know, Mano, he's really good, eh? And she started to cry because she knew she knew in my head that I was going to push him in that direction.
Right.
And I go, maybe just once, you know, and he wanted to, you know, and then
Right.
we got to the point where I was like, I saw she was real like upset about it, and now he's very like he's a business guy, and
Right.
you know
Right.
wears his suit, looks good, and you know, but he can defend himself. But
Right.
she was right. I didn't like. I probably could have pushed him into that world, you know, and I did it, and I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. No, good for you. I mean,
Yeah.
fortunately for me and my kids are kind of we're easy because one fell in love with basketball, and
Perfect.
yeah, my son is 15, 6'5",
Oh,
and he's still
Well,
growing.
awesome.
And,
Awesome.
and then
Awesome.
my daughter fell in love with tennis, and I'm like, thank
Oh, what a score! What a score! That's a
So,
score.
yeah. So I'm like, just
Are they any
so I'm
good?
just
Are they any
keep
good?
pushing them that, huh?
Are they any good?
Yeah, my son started dunking at 13.
Jesus. Wow.
Yeah, and
wow.
and then when I take my daughter, I mean, like, listen, every father speaks well for their kids.
Of course.
When I would go watch, when I take my daughter to tennis lessons, and she hadn't been for maybe 3 weeks because things were going on, and we go there, and she just goes within like 10 minutes of warming up. That she's just like going for it. I'm like, and then I hear the coach go, "Hey, Gianna, very good. This, that." I'm like, okay, this girl's got it.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, and she loves it. And so,
Fantastic.
what I did say to her though, that's because she used to do jujitsu,
Oh,
and she
yeah.
wasn't, she was pretty good at it too. And so both of my kids still do martial arts, but Adriana's been kind of busy with obviously school and tennis. And so I said, listen, I'm okay with you not doing jiu-jitsu this year, but once you hit 10, which is next year, you have to go back to jiu-jitsu. And he's like, okay, Dad, deal.
Good.
That's cool though.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
First of all, again, thank you so much for joining us tonight, Ray. We always give like an opportunity at the end for everyone to just to kind of like, say something that's on their mind. Maybe you have an encouraging word for some young people. We talked really deeply about faith and that. Maybe there's something that you can leave us with tonight that from Ray himself.
Don't forget to dream big. And don't ever let anybody tell you that that you're nothing and this and that, because that's just their own opinion of whatever they see. That being said, don't forget to dream big. Don't forget to believe in God. Find that faith and find that relationship with God, because it's so important, because it's going to take you through the right path. But dream big. And geez, I was a dreamer. When people tell you you're a dreamer, keep dreaming.
Yeah,
keep
absolutely.
dreaming.
Yeah.
Because eventually that becomes reality when you start pushing, forward and keep working hard. Discipline is number one. Discipline is number one. Respect and consistency. And if you have those three things in your life, you're gonna continue to move forward in a positive way. And I've done that throughout my life, and I've been very fortunate, and I thank the good Lord every day and night, that I sit where I sit. So God bless, and thank you for all the love and support.
Yes.
Well, we thank you again so much for your time tonight. When's the next big event for PFL?
The next big show is actually in Dubai, the 25th of January, actually. So,
okay. All right.
Usman will be defending his world title, and obviously the holidays, and for him, he's training right through.
Yeah.
And on that point, I also want to wish everybody a happy Christmas and happy holidays.
Yeah, very nice.
Well, thank you so much, Ray, for joining us. Great honor to talk to you and to hear more about you. And thank you so much for opening up and sharing a story that you haven't shared publicly like that before.
No, for sure. It's, I don't know, you guys seem so, I easy to talk to, and you guys are awesome. And so it's easy to kind of just share certain things with people that not only appreciate the time, but also people that love God. And it's important.
Correct.
We totally agree. Absolutely.
So thank you, gentlemen. I appreciate you guys.
Thanks for being on, Ray. We appreciate it.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Awesome.
Wow.
Well, to finish the year with that, Jesse,
that's pretty good.
Is just incredible. Like, it's funny. I knew about him my whole life. Like it was weird. We never crossed paths. But the crazy part was I always knew about him. And the crazy part about it was I never heard a bad word about him. Never once.
Right.
And in the MMA world, that's impossible. Literally, probably it's unheard of. I think he's the only one.
Yeah.
Because you could ask anybody about me in the MMA world, 50% would say I was an asshole, 50% would say I'm awesome. You would ask Dana White, same thing, 50-50.
Yeah.
And then but Ray was different. He's a guy that, like you can go to his Instagram, everybody, Sugar Ray Sefo, and you can see him sparring like members of the gym at Extreme Couture. And I think it's hilarious because these guys are trying to like light him up and stuff. And he's so nice with them. Like, and I'm like, you don't understand who you're like, I don't think you really get. Because I watched every one of his K1 fights, like every one. In fact, I watched them when they were on VHS tape.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's how long I've been watching him fight. And it's like when you watch Ray Sefo fight, it was like, oh shit, something's gonna happen here, right? Like it's gonna happen. A machine. And literally it's to have him as our last guest of the year was like awesome. He reached out and I was like, yeah, of course, right? Like he just I initially reached out to him and then he basically responded immediately and he was like, yeah, Mark, I'd love to come on the show. And I was like, yeah, that's a great lead in for 2025.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Again, great conversation because anytime that someone opens up and shares something personal in their life, it's amazing because that's what really gets us to grow. Like we can't we can sit here all day and talk about 6-time world champion, which is an amazing accomplishment. But really, like I want to know, and I know everyone watching wants to know what actually got you there. What actually was the mentality to do
2010, 2011. Okay, so
2012 he started the WSOF.
Okay, so before that though, 2010, 2011. So basically 14 years ago, which isn't that long ago. 14 years ago, couldn't pay for his hotel room.
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so just so you know, this is a guy that was K1 he was there making all kinds of money, had all kinds of everything, lost it all, and rebuilt. And now he's the president of PFL.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's how it works.
So good.
Hey, put some hard work and some faith together, and there's no telling what you can do.
Well, he said discipline, respect, now I can't remember the third one. Discipline. Consistency.
Right.
Discipline, respect,
consistency. Yes, correct.
It's true. Like you look at that and then you talk to him for 45 minutes or an hour and you realize like, oh, this isn't a joke. That's why and I wanted to know that too about when he says stuff like he says this is a fighter first organization. Well, what does that mean? And now you see the baseline of who he is as an individual, and then you're like, no, this guy actually does care about these individuals.
Well, that's why he's literally trains the striking.
Yeah, exactly.
He literally trains the striking at Extreme Couture in Las Vegas.
Yeah.
So if you literally go to the gym, Extreme Couture in Las Vegas, he'll be in there teaching people how to strike. He is the PFL president.
Yeah.
Okay. He's the one that bought Bellator. He's the one that made this happen. And at the same time, he has time to teach the striking course. You know what? I shouldn't say it that way because I think he'd be mad if I said that. He would be more appreciative if I said he has to do that. You get what I'm saying? Like he has to teach at that school because that's for his own self. Because he's
right.
Because Ray's a martial artist by heart.
Yeah.
He's a martial artist first before anything else in his life. He has that in his soul. So when he's in a gym and he's sitting there with holding pads for somebody, it's not. He doesn't have to do that.
No,
he needs to do that. Like that's who he is, and that's why you have never heard anybody talk crap about him because of that.
Well, I mean, genuine awesome guy, and hope we can get him back soon because yeah, I want to hear more. We hardly even got into his career, which
Yeah,
doesn't
it's
really
crazy.
matter.
You know,
But yeah, the point is,
it always happens. Yeah.
Ray, like, you know, Ray, there's been a number of guests we've had on the show that definitely can, you know, talk really deeply and
part two.
and then and
part
again,
two,
like you said
yeah.
too, it's not the first time someone's actually said, "Hey,
Oh,
I've
it's
never
happened 100
talked about
times.
this."
Yeah, it's
and
happened
he's
100
doing
times.
it live on the internet for thousands of people to see. So it's pretty awesome, and that to me speaks of character of an individual too. If you're willing to open up that way, because it shows that you're strong. You don't care if there's like a time of weakness you had or a time that it was rough. You can talk about those things freely because you're a strong individual. It doesn't matter what you have; it matters what's in here, and that's clear. And so I think, you know, listening to that and people watching today, if you're listening to that, like, you become fans of the PFL because
Yeah, I
you know
agree.
that
I agree.
it has the leadership that it needs to do something important, which we said for, and how many fighters have we talked to about this, that they need to actually do something to protect the fighters, to it's a tough profession, like, let's get them actually taken care of. And I think there's actually some hope with the PFL that could actually be a pioneer.
Well, they took a huge chunk of the pie when they took Bellator over.
Mind blowing that happened.
And then they put PFL together, and with Ray's mentality and his crew's mentality, there's no telling what they can do. And you know what the great part about it is? They don't have to. They're on no time schedule.
No.
Because did you hear what he said? His whole premise is not to take over the UFC.
No.
His whole premise is to make PFL as big as possible. End of story.
Yeah.
So that's the right mentality to have. You know, you hear everybody else come, they talk stupid. You know, like they don't. That's not the way to
the
do
UFC.
it.
It's like, no.
Yeah. No. We're gonna do what we're gonna do and make our brand as big as we can make
our
it,
brand.
and then that's it.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited. That was great. And another year in the books of the Me and Jesse podcast.
Sir. We want to wish everybody the merriest of Christmases.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. And we'll be back in January. And we want to thank everyone, especially our great sponsors at Crystal Glass, your clear choice for all your glass needs. Call 310 Glass or go to crystalglass.ca today. Ken Franchuk and the entire team at Crystal Glass, we can't thank you enough for continually supporting our podcast. And we're looking forward to 2025.
Thanks so much. And also, too, all you awesome viewers that just tune in and comment and like, we appreciate everything.
And our guests. And our guests.
And then our
Come
guests.
on, man. We know you're all famous and got all this money, and we know all this stuff, but you guys are awesome to consistently come on our podcast. And literally, you'll notice that we have a lot of new guests all the time. It's like, we do want to repeat, guys. I know people are screaming for Kelly Rudy to come back. People are screaming for Louis DeBrus to come back. People are screaming for George LaRock to come back. Eric Harris to come back. People are screaming for Donald Penn to come back. People are screaming for all these guys to come back. And we know we want you all to come back. We do. But like I said, it's there's so many new guests all the time on the Me and Jesse podcast. And don't worry, guys, our website will be up next year too. So it'll be meandjesse.com. But it'll be up, and it'll be a blog filled, sports filled website that'll have everything you need on it. And the rest is I'm always sad the last show of the year. It's weird. It's like, I'm happy the show was great, and then I'm like sad. It's like, that show's over for a year.
Another year.
Yeah, another year.
Well, I mean, hey, like, we'll be back in the new year, everyone, and maybe this time, like, hey, you do all the time, but if you have someone that that, hey, this person I've heard from, and they have these really cool stories, send us their name, because maybe we can get them in.
We always, that's so true, right? We always get in with but that's not a bad idea.
Yeah, we want to, maybe we haven't talked to someone that about, and so we'd love to hear who those people are as well, and maybe the ones that do something different.
Send DM us on Instagram, okay, everybody. So it's Me and Jesse podcast on Instagram. So you can DM us on there. It's really easy to do, and and we do answer our DMs, because we got a funny one yesterday from our buddy Jerpov out in Kelowna, and so we do respond to them.
Until next year.
Yes. Yeah.
First of all, thanks so much, Ray, again for joining us. But until next year, everybody, that's Mark Pavlich. I'm Jesse Martin. This has been the Me and Jesse podcast, 2024 edition. What will 2025 have? I don't know. More of better, even better.
Yes.
Just up from here. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.
Thanks for watching the Me and Jesse podcast. Follow us at facebook.com/meandjesse.